So, we've talked about more broad term asks and about housing. So, are there any specific legislative initiatives or bills, perhaps, that your organization is currently supporting, whether that be in our city of San Jose, the county, or even the state and national levels?
hmm that's a really good question because we, again, collaboratively support things. Our organization doesn't sponsor any bills. That's not part of our mission. But we do support, again, collectively. And an example is the city of San Jose. They want to put a ballot measure on the November ballot for November 2024. And it's specifically around fees for parks, improving the parks through getting an additional park fee within the, what's the word? Anyway, so that's something that we're watching because we want to see how much is the fee and specifically what would the money be used for. So even though it may be labeled a park initiative, it may have other things that are used, such as housing or trash cleanup, which is not necessarily specifically supporting a park. And then also at the state level, there's a ballot measure that is also coming up
Mhm.
on the November ballot, and it includes supporting Coyote Valley and South San Jose to have it codified by a state bill as a resource of state importance and to receive funding towards planning to keep it open and available for wildlife and for people to enjoy. So those are two things that we're watching right now.
Interesting, yeah. So I know you talked a lot about schools and universities and education initiatives. And I know that a lot of environmental groups, both high up and low, local nonprofits, tend to focus on youth advocacy and youth initiative. But of course, that's one of many demographics. So are there any specific demographics or communities that your organization is particularly focused on engaging?
So, just like a lot of other groups you mentioned, youth is definitely one. It starts at a young age, and if people who are 5 years old kind of get the idea about recycling, then that's something they might carry through their lives. So, what we're trying to do is get families out so that kids get connected to nature, and if they get connected to nature and they'll see that's something that they want to have in their lives, they'll do something about it. So that's always going to be a demographic that we want to engage. But we also recognize that within Coyote Creek's watershed, there are a lot of people of Vietnamese and Latino cultural identities. And as a result, we want to collaborate more with them, look at how can we have people represented within the Vietnamese community, for example. And I just met with someone who's actually interested in maybe joining one of our committees and introducing me to some of the Vietnamese community leaders. So that's an example of where we're looking at some of the cultural groups that are within the watershed and how can we partner more with them to do events together and help raise awareness around both of our interests.
So, of course, reaching out and just running the nonprofit in general must be fairly costly. So, how does your organization tend to fund its operations? I know you have a variety of donors, but are a lot of them, just local Bay Area residents or perhaps higher ups? And are there any major funding problems that your organization either currently faces or has faced in the past?
Well, unfortunately, the majority of our funding is through government grants. And the problem with being reliant on grants is that they have a start and they have an end time. And so there's always this chasing of money that a lot of nonprofits have to do in order to keep themselves up and running. And our board is working hard to change our reliance on grants to one of more foundation support, but also individual donations. And we do have a small amount of people who give a small amount of money periodically, but we'd really like to increase that and have people who work at companies maybe give a regular monthly donation. So that would help.
Mhm.
And then, kind of again, the flip side of being so reliant on grants is that it's not sustainable. And that's again an area that is a funding problem for us. But at the same time, we're optimistic that we can turn that around.
Yeah, definitely. So to get the conversation back to Coyote Creek, what steps can the average citizen take, especially here in the Bay Area, to further environmental causes such as yours?
Well, there are just so many things that a person can do, right? So I say just pick one. And one of the things is a 30-day challenge. Uh, if somebody just picks one activity that they want to change in their lives and practice it for 30 days, it becomes a habit. And then once you've got that one down, you can choose another one. So I know it sounds silly, but if people just start small by even just bringing their own shopping bags and buying in bulk at a grocery store, that makes a difference. You're not adding to even paper bags or plastic bags as a problem. You can even use reusable cloth bags for vegetables. So that's again trying to reduce your plastic footprint. Another thing is maybe working with existing organizations. So I know, Ion, you started your own organization, which has its specific mission, but maybe people have something that resonates with them, such as like ours, where they want to remove trash from creeks or share their naturalist knowledge, which we love having people get involved in, or planting trees, or getting out and creating native plant gardens in their school. Those are all things, again, that you can work with an existing organization and not feel burdened at creating something new. An organization like ours already have the infrastructure to run events. Also, if time is an issue, making a financial donation always helps an organization. That's what keeps us going. It pays our staff, and it keeps us engaged in the community through the tools that we have to use. We use a couple of tools that cost money, and we need to keep going with those to do our outreach. If people are interested in making a big change, however, an average person can still make a big change, such as changing their landscape. And if you change your landscape at your home, or if you live in a community from a high water grassy area to more of a low water native plants area, you really can change the footprint of your water use in the long run. Of course, up front, you need to spend some water getting your plants established, but once they're going, they don't require as much water as some of the grasses. And an example of how to help make that happen is that there are local agencies that offer rebates. An example is Valley Water has a landscape rebate program. And then I've taken advantage of moving my home appliances from gas to electric. So my carbon dioxide output is slightly lower because I now have a different appliance that used to run on gas and now is running on electric. And again, I used a rebate in order to help make that affordable. So I think those are things that people can do if they want to make some bigger changes.
Yeah, I really like your initiative to start big change at the smaller levels with the 30 days and simply shifting your appliances or even your plants in your garden. But if we do look at some of the higher level changes, I think we can agree that, big laws can definitely have big impacts as well. So are there any major or even small policy changes that you would like to see to improve the health of Coyote Creek and other local waterways, whether that be on the city or state or even national level?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I would really like to see our system change is how we handle homelessness. It has such a societal impact throughout the world. Think about the millions of people who've been displaced due to wars and how they are living right now without sanitation. Well, we have that at Coyote Creek. People don't have sanitation, they don't have a place to clean their bodies or to wash their food. And so people get sick. And I think that instead of enabling people to live outdoors, we need to maybe have a bigger impact on health and safety by helping people to move indoors and away from our creeks and parks. So that's one of the ones that I would love to see policy changes. And instead of just leaving people to their own devices, is to have them participate in society appropriately. We also need to take litter and illegal dumping more seriously throughout our region. Uh, if you drive on the highways around here, in especially in the South Bay, you'll see a lot of trash. And I kind of joke that I know when I'm in Santa Clara County because all of a sudden the trash load increases. And part of that is the cost of living. I learned that Caltrans employees, whether you live in an area like Stanislaus County, where the cost of living is low, or you live in Santa Clara County, you make the same amount of money. There's no cost of living adjustment. And therefore, when people are illegally dumping or throwing trash anywhere, there's not really this incentive for agencies to clean up. I think with regards to litter and illegal dumping, if we take it more seriously, the water that runs from the highest point, obviously in the mountains, to the lowest point, which would be our bay, would hopefully be cleaner. And every creek and storm drain, and even the curb, they all collect trash. And if we are individually, as well as looking at a policy level, taking trash more seriously, we can make a bigger impact on keeping our environment clean. One of the things that I really, really would love to see our state do is continue the plastic bans. So we've banned straws, plastic straws, we've banned plastic bags. Not really, but we have. But let's move into styrofoam. Styrofoam is just a really nasty plastic, and it really should be banned from our world. Molded cardboard does the same, protects the same way, and it's a recyclable, 100% recyclable material. Styrofoam, however, it breaks down into smaller pieces really quickly. So even within a few months, when we go out to a creek cleanup and try to remove it, it breaks down into little pieces almost immediately. So that is definitely one of the policy changes I would love someone to take on. And then this one may not seem very connected, but light pollution is a growing concern. We have electronic billboards, we have landscape lighting, and even some of the large buildings just glow at night because there's not this concern around energy consumption. And there's also not as much concern about light pollution. And I think that's something that we can do as a region, is instead of looking down from the International Space Station and seeing all these lit up cities, is maybe we can make the world a little bit darker for wildlife, for people, and using a lot less electricity. And that's all something that impacts climate change.
Yeah, definitely. I really liked your point about trash and litter laws because I know I personally love the organization Adopt a Highway, where people, just average citizens, can go and pick up trash. I think that's really awesome. But if we could stop the trash from getting there, I think that would be a big improvement.
Yeah, and along those lines, I used to work in the waste management industry, and one of the very successful programs that was a statewide program was in Texas. They had a campaign that said, "Don't mess with Texas." And so people really recognized that if they were throwing trash out of their vehicles, that they were contributing to pollution within their own communities. And if there's a way that we can create that sort of message, either within our own state or locally within the Bay Area, I think it would make a huge difference with regards to the trash that we end up having in our bay.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, well, I suppose I only have one more question for you. So I started off my environmental journey back in freshman year, actually. But in truth, I started my nonprofit around, I believe, the end of my sophomore year to the middle of that, because I didn't really know where to begin. I mean, there's so many environmental issues that are pressing. Some of them are local, like Coyote Creek's pollution, but a lot of them are on the national or even global level. And it can feel a little overwhelming at times. So you've been in this field for a very long time. And do you have any words of advice or wisdom for the viewers of this podcast who are interested in environmentalism, but don't really know where to begin?
Well, as you've just mentioned, there's so many topics that people can choose from. And I think it's just finding one that you're really passionate about and start small by making one change personally. And and that could be, plastic, which I think is the hardest thing in our lives to reduce, but it takes a conscious effort and practice in order to make that change. For me, when I started very young doing recycling, it was just starting. And that's something that I've really made an effort to not only teach other people, I've also worked in that realm professionally and continue to advocate for ways that I can reduce my footprint beyond just recycling, but also thinking about choice before I purchase. And then I think to continue with that is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that you can do is once you have your own practice down, your 30-day challenge has been met, and you're continuing that as a practice, is to let other people know. I just met a young man last week, and what he's doing is really taking the plastic challenge on himself. So he brings tared glass jars to fill up with flour, or if he goes to get detergent, he's trying to find places that he can fill his glass jars, which are very easily reusable. Beyond recycling is reusable. So he's not taking up plastic. And I thought, wow, here he is. He's letting me know another way that I can reduce my plastic footprint. And I was really grateful that he shared that with me. So again, he started small, and then he said, I'm going to take this plastic challenge on and really make an effort.
No, I really like that idea of starting small because I know like the Tide containers, especially for laundry detergent, are really big and just huge items of plastic. So if, I started doing that and then I told my friends and et cetera, we could significantly make a difference. That's
Yeah, there's businesses that specialize in small footprint sort of goods. I know that in Capitola, there's a business where you can bring your jars and fill them with different liquids or powders. And in fact, powder is environmentally much more friendly than a liquid in terms of the carbon footprint of the trucks that have to move the material around. And then, for example, bar soaps for shampoo instead of liquid. There's just all these opportunities if you know about it, right? You have to know about it. And the best way is to practice it yourself and then share what you're doing.
definitely. Yeah, I think when I started off, I kind of just looked into things I could do. And on the small scale, I found a lot of resources. So I definitely think that just looking for the right places and looking to make an impact, small and then maybe shifting towards larger things is really powerful and important.
Yep, you're right. And I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing, Ion.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining me. I know you're a busy woman, so I'm sure you have a lot of things to do, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join me on this podcast and educating me as well as my viewers about some important environmental concerns.
I'm glad to be able to join you. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, I suppose this is the end of the episode, so I'm gonna